Welcome to this explainer. We are jumping right in today because we're exploring this really fascinating intersection of modern neuroscience and traditional Japanese philosophy. We're going to uncover one of the oldest, most scientifically validated financial practices on Earth. It's a $0 budgeting ritual that is absolutely proven to make you feel profoundly wealthy. And honestly, the best part, you don't have to download a single app to do it.
To really understand how this works, I want you to picture a woman living in Osaka, Japan. She's a mid-level accountant, a mother of two, living in a pretty modest 640 square foot apartment. Her neighborhood doesn't have any Michelin stars. And yet, on the first of every single month, she sits down at her kitchen table for exactly 22 minutes. She opens up this notebook she's been using for 11 years, a notebook that costs her just 180 yen, which is barely over $1. And when she finishes, she feels, by every measurable indicator of psychological well-being, profoundly wealthy. She isn't just crunching numbers for a budget, she is performing a ritual.
So the big question we really need to unpack today is, how does a $0 budget ritual create such profound wealth? Well, what millions of Japanese households have quietly understood for over a century is that the feeling of financial security doesn't actually come from the size of your bank account. It comes entirely from the quality of your relationship with what's already in it.
Section 1. The Neuroscience of Spending. Okay, before we get into the ritual itself, we absolutely have to dismantle a very deliberate myth. And that's the idea that digital financial convenience is the exact same thing as financial control. A 2022 MIT Sloan School of Management study, led by Professor Drazen Prelek, exposes exactly why this mindset is so dangerous. Using functional MRI machines, these researchers found that making a purchase with a credit card literally hijacks your brain. The striatum, that's the dopamine reward center that gets activated by addictive substances, fires up with pleasure. But when you spend physical cash, that activates the anterior insula, which is the brain region that processes physical pain. Science literally calls this the pain of paying. Section 2. The Kakeibo Ritual. So for over a century, Japan has been using this exact biological friction not as some sort of punishment, but as a really powerful cognitive tool. It's called Kakeibo, which translates simply to household account book. It was invented way back in 1904 by Japan's first female journalist, Hanimo Toko, and she intuitively captured something that behavioral economists wouldn't formally prove for another 100 years. She realized that the act of writing something down isn't just record-keeping, it's a form of cognitive ownership. And modern data vividly backs up this 1904 invention. There's this 2024 study from the Norwegian University of Science and Technology that used high-density EEG mapping to look at exactly how we process numbers. When you just type numbers into an app, you get very low brain activation. You're basically just on a reactive autopilot. But handwriting, that activates a vastly broader neural network. It triggers memory formation, sensory encoding, and emotional processing. When you write a number by hand, your brain doesn't just record it, it actually feels it. You literally shift from autopilot to authorship. So how do you actually do this? Well, instead of just reacting to where your money went at the end of the month, the Kakeibo practitioner sits down for 20 minutes and deliberately answers 4 specific questions by hand. Number 1, how much money do I have available? Number 2, how much do I want to save? Number 3, how much am I actually spending? And number 4, how can I improve? Just 4 questions, 1 notebook, done entirely by hand. And the results of this incredibly simple analog practice are staggering. Studies suggest that people who consistently maintain this physical ritual reduce their monthly expenditure by 15 to 35%. And they aren't doing this by ruthlessly depriving themselves either. They're doing it because awareness, which is engineered right through the art of handwriting, is the most powerful spending break ever discovered. Section 3, Designing Financial Friction. So how does this translate into the physical world? In Japan, the second layer of the practice is known as the fukuro, or the envelope approach. At the start of the month, you withdraw your discretionary spending as physical cash, and you divide it into 4 physical envelopes: needs, wants, culture, and the unexpected. By doing this, your pocket is no longer just a vessel holding your money, it becomes a physical boundary. Unlike some digital account balance hidden behind a screen, these are boundaries your nervous system can actually feel. Now, remember the pain of paying we talked about earlier? Well, this envelope method deliberately restores it. The data suggests that if you force yourself to pause for just 10 seconds to physically count out cash from an envelope for a non-essential purchase, you'll actually reconsider that purchase over 30% of the time. You are consciously reintroducing friction back into a world that has literally spent billions of dollars engineering it away. Section 4, the power of chisoko. This brings us to the deepest layer of the practice, where a simple notebook essentially becomes a mirror. Shisoku is represented by two characters that translate directly to knowing satisfaction, or knowing that you have enough. It's rooted in Buddhist and Taoist traditions, and this philosophy became the real backbone of Japanese domestic life during the Edo period. Back then, resources were incredibly scarce, so the culture built an entire aesthetic around sufficiency. It's all about experiencing wealth internally rather than performing it outwardly for everybody else.
And this is where the neuroscience gets incredibly fascinating. Foundational work by neurologist Antonio Damasio and psychologist James Clear shows us exactly how the brain's prefrontal cortex handles behavior change. The brain really doesn't respond durably to strict rules, like, I cannot spend more than $200. That just creates temporary compliance. But the brain permanently wires itself to identity-based narratives, like, I find abundance in simplicity. So when the woman in Osaka writes in her 180 yen notebook, she isn't creating some ledger of limitations. She is encoding a profound story about her identity and her values directly into her long-term memory. She's reinforcing the narrative that she is someone who finds abundance in simplicity. Because let's face it, willpower runs out, but identity does not. This profound identity shift is clearly reflected in global data. A 2024 financial well-being study found that Japan consistently ranks among nations with the highest rates of reported financial peace of mind, and that's despite average household incomes being quite moderate by developed world standards. It proves definitively that the ultimate variable for financial peace isn't your income, it is your relationship to it. So how can you apply this right now? Your toolkit for tonight is incredibly simple. Grab a physical notebook, grab a pen, find 20 minutes of silence, write today's date at the top of the page, and answer those 4 Kakeibo questions we covered earlier. And look, don't do it to judge yourself. Do it simply to see. Begin the practice of looking at your money with curiosity, knowing that the physical act of writing will neurologically change how your brain processes your finances. Now, just a quick heads up as we wrap up, this explainer is a deep dive into the psychology of money and Japanese wisdom traditions. The savings figures we talked about reflect research averages, not absolute guarantees. So this is purely for your educational purposes and shouldn't be taken as direct financial advice.
But I want to leave you with one final thought to ponder. Decades from now, you aren't going to remember the exact amounts you saved, but you will remember the moment you made a choice. So the question is, will you continue to outsource your financial life and your awareness to a digital algorithm, or will you take it back into your own hands tonight, literally, with just a pen and a piece of paper? Thank you for joining me for this explainer, and I highly encourage you to give this powerful ritual a try.